The scarred maid was not thrown into the wolf pit to be judged. She was thrown in so the court could watch her die. Everyone in Blackthorn Keep knew the sacred beast never spared the guilty. It had torn traitors apart beneath the moon. It had dragged screaming nobles into the dark. It had swallowed thieves, spies, oath-breakers, and anyone the council wanted removed without staining royal hands. So when Isla Vale hit the frozen stone at the bottom of the pit, barefoot, bleeding, and dressed in a gray servant gown, the nobles above her leaned forward. Like the ending had already been written. The beast would come. The beast would kill her. And by dawn, no one would need to remember the scarred maid who had been accused of stealing the royal ruby. Isla pushed herself onto one elbow, tasting blood where a guard had struck her mouth. Snow drifted through the open roof of the pit, melting against her skin. Around her lay old bones, half buried in frost. Some were animal, some were not. Above, the court watched through the iron railing. Women in silver masks, men in wolf fur mantles, priests holding moonstone staffs, guards with spears lowered toward her, as if she could climb out of death by stubbornness alone. At the highest balcony stood Alpha King Rowan Vare. Black armor, dark hair, gold eyes cold enough to make winter feel merciful. He did not look cruel. That was worse. Cruelty had heat. Cruelty had hunger. Rowan only looked distant, as if Isla's life had been placed before him like another matter of law, no heavier than a border tax or a broken oath. Beside him stood Lady Maera Solvin, the woman the council wanted crowned as Luna before the next full moon. She wore white fur and black pearls, untouched by cold, untouched by shame. Her beauty had the polished softness of a blade cleaned after use. In Lord Edrin's hand, the royal ruby glowed red. The maid Isla Vale, the High Counselor declared, is accused of theft from the treasury, deception within the king's household, and carrying cursed markings into sacred halls. A murmur passed through the nobles. Cursed markings. Isla's fingers rose before she could stop them, touching the 3 pale scars that crossed the left side of her face from temple to jaw. Old claw marks. Silver under moonlight. The only inheritance she had ever been allowed to keep. She had been told a wolf gave them to her in the kennel fire when she was a child. She had also been told the wolf should have finished the work. I did not steal it, Isla said. Her voice rose from the pit, small but steady. A nobleman laughed. Lady Maera's mouth curved with beautiful pity. Fear makes servants forget humility. Isla looked up at her. No, my lady. Servants remember everything. We are the ones cleaning up after nobles forget. The laughter died. For the first time, Rowan's eyes sharpened. Not merci. Attention. That tiny shift changed the air. Maera noticed it too. Her smile remained perfect, but her fingers tightened against the railing. Your Majesty, the law is clear. If no living witness can prove innocence, the sacred beast gives moon judgment. Moon judgment. A lovely name for murder. Lord Edrin lifted his staff. If the beast kills her, guilt is confirmed. Isla stared at the king. And if it does not? Silence struck the court. No servant asked that question. No condemned woman challenged the pit. No one made the Alpha King imagine a law failing in public. Rowan's gaze held hers. For one heartbeat, something flickered in his face. Something buried. Something almost like pain. Then Lord Edrin answered for him. It always kills. The iron gate below the far arch began to rise. A growl rolled from the darkness. Isla's body forgot courage. Her knees shook. Her breath shortened. The old bones beneath her feet seemed to whisper all at once. Run, crawl, beg, die. But there was nowhere to run. And begging had never saved a servant from a noble's decision. The beast emerged slowly. First came the eyes. Moitengold. Then the head, huge and black, scarred across the muzzle. Its shoulders were higher than any horse Isla had ever groomed. Its claws scraped the stone with deliberate patience. Broken chains dragged from its neck, each link thick as a man's wrist. This was not a wolf. This was a curse-wearing fur. The court held its breath. Isla stepped backward until her spine hit the pit wall. The beast came closer. She smelled blood, cold iron, and smoke. Smoke. The scent struck something deep inside her. A memory flashed. Fire in the lower kennels, screams above, smoke burning her throat. She was small, trapped beneath fallen beams. Something enormous and black stood between her and the flames. One golden eye turned toward her. A low command filled the smoke. Survive. The memory vanished. The beast stopped in front of her. Its jaws opened. Isla closed her eyes. Nothing happened. No teeth. No pain. Only warmth. She opened her eyes and saw the monster lower its head before her scarred face. The nobles above gasped. The beast did not bow like a servant. It guarded like a king. It turned its massive body around Isla, placing itself between her and the spears above. Its black fur brushed her torn gown. A growl rose from its chest, deep enough to shake snow from the stones. Then it bared its teeth at Alpha King Rowan. Every guard lifted a spear. Rowan did not move. His face had gone pale. Not because the beast threatened him, because it recognized him. Lady Mara whispered, "That is impossible." Lord Edrin's staff trembled in his hand. Isla looked from the beast to the king. "What is happening?" No one answered. Then the scars on her face began to burn. One line of silver light, then another, then the third. The court recoiled as the claw marks opened like moonlit runes beneath her skin. Pain flashed through Isla's cheek, but beneath it came something stranger than pain. Recognition. The pit floor cracked under her bare feet, and old symbols rose through the frost in rings of pale fire. Wolves kneeling beneath a black moon, women wearing crowns of bone and silver, a scarred girl standing beside a monstrous beast. Lord Edrin whispered one word as if it were forbidden. "Queen Mark." Lady Mara's pearls snapped from her throat and scattered across the snow. Rowan stepped to the edge of the pit. "Where did you get those scars?" Isla touched her burning face. Her voice shook. "I was told a wolf did this to me," the beast growled. Not in denial, in grief. Lord Edrin suddenly pointed his staff down into the pit. "Kill her before the mark opens fully." The guards hesitated. Rowan turned on him. "I gave no such order." Edrin's face hardened. "Then give it, Your Majesty, before the old blood remembers who should sit beside your throne." Old blood. Isla felt the words sink into the pit like stones into dark water. Rowan knew. Not everything, but enough. Mara spoke quickly, voice sweet and sharp. "She has bewitched the beast. Look at her scars. This is forbidden mooncraft." The beast swung its head toward her. Mara went silent. The silver runes on Isla's face burned brighter, and the pit answered. Bones shifted beneath the frost. Moonlight rose through the cracks. The monstrous wolf lowered itself beside Isla. Not as an animal, not as a weapon, but as a guardian recognizing a bloodline older than the court's lies. Then it spoke, not with lips, with a broken royal command that slammed through every wolf in Blackthorn Keep. "My son," the court screamed. Rowan staggered back from the railing as if struck. Isla looked at the Alpha King, then at the beast shielding her. The monster in the wolf pit was not a monster. It was Rowan's father, and it had chosen her. The court did not move after the beast spoke. "My son." The words still trembled inside the stones of Blackthorn Keep. Wolves in the upper balconies lowered their heads without meaning to. Guards held their spears in frozen hands. Noblewomen clutched their throats as if the voice had reached through their jewels and touched the pulse beneath. Isla stood inside the pit with silver fire burning through the scars on her face, and the monstrous black wolf stood before her like a wall of living shadow. Above her, Alpha King Rowan Vare stared down at the beast. Not as a king facing a threat, as a son facing a ghost. "That is not possible," Lady Mara whispered, but she did not sound certain. Lord Edrin recovered first. He always did. Men like him survived by reaching for law before truth could breathe. He struck his staff against the stone balcony, and the sound cracked through the silence. "The beast mimics voices," he declared. "Old curses use familiar grief to weaken judgment." Rowan did not look at him. His eyes remained fixed on the wolf. "Father?" he said. The word was quiet. Too quiet for a king. The beast lowered its head, and for one heartbeat, Isla saw something human inside those molten eyes. Pain, recognition, warning. the kind of sorrow that had been trapped so long it no longer knew how to be gentle. Then the beast turned its massive body, shielding Isla even more completely from the court. Lord Edrin's mouth tightened. "Your Majesty," step back from the railing. Rowan finally turned to him. "How long?" The counselor went still. "My king? How long has the beast in my pit worn my father's voice?" The court inhaled as one body. Mara touched Rowan's arm. "You are grieving. Do not let this servant's curse twist you." Rowan looked at her hand. She withdrew it. Isla saw that small movement from below, and fear sharpened into something more dangerous. There were cracks above her now. Cracks in the king. Cracks in the council. Cracks in the beautiful mask of Lady Mara. But cracks could close. And girls in pits could still die. The silver runes in Isla's scars pulsed harder. Pain burned down her cheek and into her throat. She gripped the beast's fur without thinking. It was hot beneath her fingers. Real and solid and strangely familiar. A memory flashed again. The kennel fire. Smoke. A black wolf standing over her small body. A woman screaming from beyond the flames. "Do not let them see the mark." Then a hand pressed against Isla's face. Not clawing. Sealing. Isla staggered. The beast leaned into her, keeping her upright. Rowan saw it. "What is happening to her?" he demanded. Lord Edrin raised his staff. "The mark is opening. If it completes, the pit will answer her blood. Then stop threatening her and start explaining why that terrifies you." The court went silent again. Isla's eyes lifted to Rowan. For the first time, he did not look away from her scars. He looked ashamed. Not enough. Not nearly enough. But enough to make Mara afraid. She turned toward the nobles. Voice sweet and shaking. "You all saw it. The beast protects her. The pit lights beneath her. A maid accused of treasury theft now stands at the center of forbidden mooncraft. This is exactly how old queens destroyed kingdoms, by making kings hesitate. Old queens." The runes beneath Isla's feet flared. The beast snarled. Lord Edrin seized the moment. "She carries Queenmark blood. It was erased for a reason." Rowan's face hardened. "Erased by whom?" Edrin did not answer fast enough. That was answer enough. Isla looked at the glowing symbols on the pit floor. Women crowned in moonbone. Wolves kneeling freely beside them. Not beneath them. Her breath shook. "What is Queenmark blood?" The beast answered. "Not fully. Not in sentences." Images slammed into the pit. A woman with Isla's scars standing beside an old throne. A black wolf kneeling at her feet. A child wrapped in a servant blanket. A council blade. A burning kennel. Hands reaching for Isla's face. Blood on snow. Then the image vanished. Isla fell to her knees. The beast roared so violently the iron railing shook. Rowan moved toward the pit stairs. Lord Edrin stepped in front of him. "If you enter, the court will see you standing with forbidden blood." Rowan's eyes flashed gold. "Move. My king, your father died 10 years ago." The beast's growl deepened. Edrin leaned closer, voice low but sharp enough for the nearest nobles to hear. "And if this thing convinces the court otherwise, every law passed since his death becomes questionable. Every execution, every marriage pact, every council seat, every border oath. Is that what you want?" Rowan stopped. Isla saw it happen. The hesitation, not cowardice. Calculation. A king measuring truth against the weight of a kingdom built on lies. It hurt more than his silence had. She stood slowly, one hand still buried in the beast's fur. "You are wondering whether I am worth the trouble," she said. Rowan's gaze snapped to her. The court froze. Isla's voice trembled. But she did not lower it. "That is what kings do, is it not? They ask whether truth will cost too much before deciding if it deserves to live." A visible wound crossed Rowan's face. "Good. Let him feel it." Mara stepped forward. "Listen to her. She speaks treason from a pit." "No," Isla said. "I speak from the place you threw me." The silver marks on her face burned brighter. The beast lowered its head beside her. The pit answered again. This time, the old bones beneath the frost began to rise, not as bodies, as names, silver letters lifted from the ground, circling Isla in the air. The court watched in horror as names of past victims appeared: servants, guards, healers, border envoys, noble daughters, all sent into the wolf pit under charges no one had ever questioned. At the center of the names burned one phrase: judged guilty after death. Isla stared at it. The pit had never judged anyone. The pit had been used to hide murder. Rowan read the words from above. His face went white. Lord Edrin shouted, "Enough!" He thrust his staff toward the pit. Moonsteel chains shot from the walls, aimed not at the beast, but at Isla. Rowan roared, "Do not touch her." Too late. The chains wrapped around Isla's wrists and throat, dragging her backward. The silver runes on her scars flared in agony. She cried out, and the beast went mad. It slammed into the wall with enough force to crack stone. The nobles screamed. Rowan leapt down from the balcony into the pit. The impact split the frost beneath his boots. For the first time in Blackthorn's history, an alpha king stood inside the wolf pit with the condemned. The beast froze. Rowan stood between Isla and the chains, claws breaking through his gloves, golden eyes fixed on Edrin above. "You wanted judgment," Rowan said. "Now the king stands witness." Edrin's face twisted. "Then witness what she is." He slammed his staff down. The chains tightened around Isla. Silver fire erupted from her scars, and the pit floor broke open beneath her knees. A crown of moonlit bone rose from the stones. The beast lowered its head. Every wolf in Blackthorn Keep collapsed to one knee. Even Rowan staggered. Isla looked down at the crown glowing at her feet. Then the beast spoke again, its broken royal voice filling the pit. "She is not cursed. She is the blood you stole the throne from." The wolf pit became a throne room of bones. Every wolf in Blackthorn Keep was on one knee. Nobles, guards, priests, alphas from border packs who had never bowed to anyone but blood and war. Even Lady Mara had fallen against the iron railing, one hand pressed to the stone, her perfect white fur cloak spilling into the snow. Only Isla remained upright, not because she understood what was happening, because the monstrous black wolf stood against her side, holding her up with the heat of its body while moonsteel chains still burned around her wrists. Alpha King Rowan staggered in front of her, fighting the force that dragged his wolf toward the ground. His claws had torn through his gloves. His breath came rough. He stared at the glowing crown of moonlit bone at Isla's feet. As if it had risen from a grave he had spent his life refusing to open. "She is not cursed. She is the blood you stole the throne from." The beast's words still rang through the pit. Isla looked at Rowan. For the first time, the Alpha King did not look like a judge. He looked like a man who had just heard his own crown accuse him. Lord Edrin recovered before anyone else. He forced himself upright against the balcony rail, face twisted with fury. "Do not listen to it. The beast speaks with madness." The black wolf raised its head. Edrin flinched. Rowan's voice came low. "You told me my father died in the Northern War." "He did," the beast snarled. Rowan turned fully toward the counselor. "Then why does the pit beast call me son?" Edrin's mouth tightened. "Because forbidden blood has awakened the old curse." Isla laughed once. It surprised even her. The sound was small, wounded, and sharp enough to cut through the court. "Everything you fear becomes a curse, does it not?" she said. "My scars. My blood. The beast. The dead names under this pit. How convenient." The silver names still circled her in the air, each one glowing like a soul that had waited too long to be remembered. A servant boy, a healer, a border bride, a stableman, a young noble daughter, a priestess. So many, too many, all judged guilty after death. Rowan read them in silence. Then his gaze stopped on one name, Queen Ilowenver. The pit went cold. Rowan whispered, "My mother?" Lady Myra's face changed. No shock, fear. Isla saw it. The black beast saw it too, its golden eye fixed on Mara, and the pit filled with a growl so deep that cracks spread through the stone wall. Rowan turned slowly toward her. "My mother was said to have died from fever." Mara's lips parted. "Your Majesty," Edrin cut in. "The former queen's death is not relevant to this trial." Rowan's eyes flashed. "Everything buried in this pit is relevant now." The moonlit crown at Isla's feet pulsed once. The chains around her wrists loosened. A vision tore through the pit. Isla saw a woman in a silver gown standing at this same railing years ago, her face proud, her hands bound. Queen Elowyn, Rowan's mother. She looked down into the pit not with fear, but betrayal. Beside her stood Lord Edrin, younger but already cold. Beside him, a young Lady Myra watched from the shadows, clutching a black pearl necklace. Then the vision shifted. The monstrous black wolf was not monstrous then. He was a king, Rowan's father, tall, dark-haired, golden-eyed, standing before the council while moonsteel chains burned around his throat. Elowyn screamed his name as the council forced him into the pit. Edrin's voice echoed from the past. A king who kneels to Queenmark blood cannot keep a throne. Then the vision shattered. Isla stumbled backward. Rowan caught her. The touch shocked them both. His hand closed around her arm, firm but not possessive. And for a moment the noise of the court vanished beneath the sudden heat of him. He looked at her face, at the glowing scars, at the pain he had helped drag into the pit. "I did not know," he said. Isla's throat tightened. "No," she whispered. "You did not ask." The words struck him harder than accusation. Good. She wanted them to. Mara stood above them now, her voice trembling but beautiful. "This is illusion. The scarred maid is twisting grief to save herself. Look at her. Look at what the pit has made of your court. She has forced every wolf to kneel." The black beast growled. But Isla looked up before Rowan could answer. "I forced no one," she said. "You threw me down here." The crown of moonlit bone rose higher from the pit floor. It did not land on her head. It hovered before her, waiting. That terrified the court more than if it had crowned her by force. Lord Edrin lifted both hands, and every moonstone ring on his fingers flared. "If the crown accepts her, Blackthorn falls." "No," Rowan said. "If the crown accepts her, then Blackthorn has already fallen and we are only now seeing the ruins." Edrin's face hardened. "You would stand with her?" Rowan looked at Isla. She did not soften. She did not reach for him. She did not give him the comfort of gratitude. He had let the trial happen. He had watched from above. He had hesitated when she needed truth more than law. Rowan seemed to understand. He turned back to the counselor. "I stand with the witness I tried to condemn." A violent whisper passed through the court. Myra's eyes filled with fury. "You would throw away your throne for a maid with cursed scars?" Rowan's jaw tightened. Before he could speak, Isla stepped forward, chains dragging against the stone. "I am tired," she said. The court fell silent. "I am tired of my face being your warning. I am tired of my scars being proof before I speak. I am tired of nobles calling servants cursed because our blood remembers what yours paid to forget." The moonlit crown turned toward her. The beast lowered its head. Isla lifted her scarred face to the court. "If I am guilty, show the theft. Show my hand on the ruby. Show the witness who saw me take it." No one spoke. She looked at Mara. The false Luna candidate went still. Isla's voice dropped. "Or show them who placed it in my bedding." Myra's beauty cracked. "Only for a second." "Enough," the pit answered. The snow above turned silver. A thin beam of moonlight struck the royal ruby in Lord Edrin's hand. The jewel burned red, then black, then split open. Inside it was not treasure. It was a blood charm, a tiny coil of golden hair. Lady Mara's hair. Gasps broke across the court. Rowan's eyes became lethal. Mara stumbled back. "I did what was necessary." The confession fell out of her before she could dress it. Edrin turned on her. Silence. But it was too late. Isla stared up at her. "Necessary for what?" Mara's eyes shone, hatred and fear tangled together. "Because girls like you ruin kingdoms by making kings look down." The beast roared. Rowan's voice cut through the sound. "No. Girls like her reveal what kingdoms buried." Edrin slammed his staff down. The pit walls split open. Moonsteel chains shot toward the black beast this time, wrapping around its throat, legs, and muzzle. The beast collapsed with a sound that was almost human. Rowan lunged forward. "Father!" Isla's heart stopped. Edrin shouted above the screaming court. "The old king remains bound, or every law since his fall dies with him." The chains tightened. The beast's golden eyes locked on Isla. Not begging, trusting. The moonlit crown drifted closer to her hands. Isla understood then. The pit was not asking her to wear it. It was asking her to choose. She looked at Rowan, who was kneeling beside the beast, clawing uselessly at the chains around the father he had mourned for 10 years. Then she looked at the court that had come to watch her die. Her scars burned like silver fire. Isla reached for the crown, and every buried name in the wolf pit began to howl. The moment Isla touched the crown of moonlit bone, the wolf pit remembered every death it had been forced to swallow. Names screamed from the stones. Not voices exactly. Wounds. Servants who had vanished after displeasing noble houses. Guards accused of treason for refusing secret orders. Healers sent below because they knew which poisons had been used in royal cups. Women dragged to the railing in silk gowns. Their crimes written by men who needed them silent. The pit had not judged them. The council had, and the beast had been forced to carry the blame. The crown did not burn Isla's hands. It was cold, almost gentle, carved from bone, moonlight, and old grief. The moment her fingers closed around it, the silver fire in her scars ran down her neck, across her shoulders, and into the chains still biting her wrists. The moonsteel cracked. Above her, the court watched without breathing. Lord Edrin shouted something, but his voice was swallowed by the howling names. Rowan knelt beside the black beast, one hand against the chains around its throat. His father's monstrous body trembled under the weight of the old binding. For one terrible second, the Alpha King looked less like a ruler and more like a son trying to hold together the last living piece of a dead childhood. Isla, he said. She looked at him. There was no command in his voice now. Only fear. Not fear of her. Fear for what she might have to become to survive them. The crown hovered between her hands, waiting. Lady Mara gripped the railing above, her face pale and furious. Do not let her put it on. If the pit crowns her, every noble house will question its bloodline. Isla lifted her eyes. Then perhaps your bloodlines should have been questioned sooner. Myra flinched. The court heard it. The scarred maid in the pit was no longer begging to be believed. She was making them afraid of what belief would cost. Edrin thrust his staff toward her. The Queenmark line was destroyed by royal decree. The black beast snarled through its muzzle chains. Rowan looked up slowly. By whose decree? Edrin's eyes flashed. Your grandfather's. Rowan went still. Another lie split open. The pit answered with a vision. Moonlight rose like mist, and the court saw a throne room long before Rowan's reign. A queen with 3 silver scars across her face stood beside a black wolf king. Around them gathered the first council of Blackthorn. The queen did not kneel to the king, and the king did not command her to. They stood side by side while the sacred wolves lowered their heads willingly. Then the vision twisted. Council blades, burning records, children taken from cradles, girls with marked faces hidden among servants, a final infant wrapped in gray cloth and carried through smoke. Isla. Her breath stopped. The kennel fire had not been an accident. It had been an erasure. She looked at Edrin, and her voice came out almost calm. You tried to burn the mark off my face. Edrin did not deny it. He smiled. That scar saved your life. Without it, we would have known you survived. Rovanrosa. The pit seemed to darken around him. You knew what she was? I knew what she might become. And you threw her into the pit, to end what your father failed to end. The beast slammed against its chains. Rowan's golden eyes burned. My father protected her. Edrin laughed bitterly. Your father betrayed his throne the day he chose Queenmark law over council law. He refused executions. He questioned trials. He wanted to open the pit records. He would have ruined Blackthorn. So you cursed him. We contained him. The word was too familiar, too clean, too practiced. Isla had heard nobles use words like that all her life. Contained, purified, corrected, judged. Words that washed blood from hands without washing away the bodies. She lifted the crown. The court recoiled. Rowan turned toward her. You do not have to wear it. The words stunned her, not because they were tender, because they were true. Everyone else had spoken of the crown as if it would decide her, as if blood, prophecy, or fear would make the choice for her. Rowan, the king who had watched her thrown into the pit, now offered the one thing his court had stolen from every person buried beneath them: choice. Isla swallowed hard. And if I do not? Then I will still break those chains, Edrin hissed. You cannot. Only Queen Mark blood can free the old king. Rowan did not look away from Isla. Then I will fail trying. Something inside her chest ached. Dangerous. Unwanted. Too soon. She looked at the beast, at the former king bound in monster flesh, at the golden eyes that had saved her once in fire and now waited without demand. Then at the names circling the pit, then at her own scarred hands. I do not want a throne, she said. The crown pulsed. I do not want revenge dressed as justice. The beast lowered its head. I want the truth opened where everyone can see it. The moonlight went still. Then Isla placed the crown not on her head, but on the pit floor. A gasp tore through the court. The crown sank into the stone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the entire wolf pit split open. Not in destruction. In revelation. Stone walls cracked, revealing thousands of silver carvings beneath the black rock. Records of trials, names of the condemned, bloodlines erased, council orders hidden beneath royal seals. Every execution the pit had ever swallowed rose in moonlit script around the court. No one could look away. Not Eva Maida. The jewel in Edrin's staff shattered. The chains around Isla's wrists fell first. Then the muzzle around the beast cracked. Then the chains around the former king's throat broke apart, one by one. The black wolf lifted its head and drew a full breath. Rowan stepped forward, trembling. Father? The beast turned toward him. For a moment the monster's eyes softened. Then black smoke poured from its fur. The wolf's body twisted, bones shifting, shadow tearing away from flesh. Nobles screamed and scattered as the pit filled with moonfire. Rowan reached out, but Isla caught his arm. Wait. He looked at her, wild with fear. If the curse breaks wrong, she whispered. Though she did not know how she knew, it will kill him. Edrin, bleeding from the mouth, laughed from above. Yes. At last she understands. The old king's life is tied to the pit. Break the curse, and every condemned name must choose whether he lives. The names around the pit stopped howling. One by one they turned toward the beast. Judgment had finally become real. Rowan's face went white. Isla understood the cruelty of it. His father had been used as the pit's weapon. The dead had suffered through him. Even if he had been cursed, even if he had been forced, their pain had worn his teeth. Freedom would require witness, and witness might not be mercy. The former king lowered his massive head before the circling names. For the first time, he did not look like a beast. He looked like a man kneeling inside a monster. His broken royal voice filled the pit. I carried your deaths. The names burned brighter. I could not stop my jaws. The moon went silent. But I remember every face. Isla's eyes filled before she could stop them. The first name drifted toward him. Then another. Then another. Not forgiving. Witnessing. The black smoke around the beast began to peel away. Rowan took one step forward. Edrin screamed, No! He pulled a hidden dagger from his sleeve and drove it into his own palm. Blood splashed across the railing, activating a second seal buried in the iron. The pit gate slammed open. From the tunnels beneath Blackthorn came answering growls. Not one beast. Many. Mara staggered back. What did you do? Edrin's smile was red. I opened the old kennels. A dozen cursed wolves emerged from the darkness, eyes black, bodies scarred with council brands. They were not hunting Rowan. They were hunting Isla. The former king, half-freed and still burning with moonfire, threw himself in front of her. Rowan stepped beside him, and for the first time in 10 years, father and son faced the same enemy. The old kennels opened beneath Blackthorn Keep, and the court finally saw what its laws had been feeding. The cursed wolves came out of the tunnels one by one. They were not like the beast in the pit. They were smaller, thinner, broken in different ways. Moonsteel brands burned across their shoulders. Old chains hung from their necks. Their black eyes held no reason, only pain sharpened into hunger. Isla knew them before anyone named them. Not animals, punishments. Every wolf the council had failed to control. Every royal bloodline that had resisted. Every servant, soldier, or noble who had been changed, instead of executed because the council wanted weapons with teeth and no voices. Lord Edrin stood above the pit, bleeding into the railing, his face bright with desperate triumph. You wanted truth, scarred girl? Here is truth. Kingdoms are not kept by mercy. They are kept by monsters. Someone has the courage to use. The cursed wolves surged forward. The former king threw his half-freed body in front of Isla, moonfire still tearing black smoke from his fur. Rowan stood beside him, claws bared, gold eyes burning. Father and son, one cursed, one crowned, both too late to stop the first wolf from leaping. Rowan met it midair. The impact cracked stone. The court screamed as the Alpha King rolled across the pit floor with the cursed wolf's jaws snapping inches from his throat. He drove his claws into its shoulder and threw it aside, but 3 more came from the tunnels, circling low. The former king roared and slammed one beast into the wall, but his legs buckled beneath him. The curse was breaking unevenly, tearing strength from him as fast as it returned memory. Isla stepped backward, chains fallen from her wrists, but terror still wrapped around her bones. She was not a warrior. She had scrubbed floors, carried water, mended torn servant cloth by candlelight, hidden her scars beneath loose hair, and survived by being useful enough not to notice. Now 12 cursed wolves wanted her blood, and somewhere above, the nobles who had thrown her down here were waiting to see whether she could save the king who had watched her fall. A cursed wolf lunged from the left. Isla raised her hands without knowing why. The scars on her face burned. Silver light flashed from her palms. Not fire, not blade, but memory. The wolf stopped inches from her, claws scraping stone, its black eyes flickering. For one heartbeat, Isla saw a boy beneath the beast, a young guard with kind eyes, dragged before the council for refusing to strike a prisoner. His name rose from the pit floor in silver script. Tavian. The wolf whimpered. Isla's breath broke. You had names. The cursed wolf trembled. Lord Edrin shouted, Kill her. The black returned to Tavian's eyes. He lunged again. Rowan caught him before he reached Isla, but he did not kill him. Instead, the Alpha King pinned the wolf to the stone, teeth clenched, muscles shaking. Isla, Rowan growled. Whatever you just did, do it again. She stared at him. I do not know how. Then ask the pit. The words struck her strangely. Ask. Note. Command. Not obey. Ask. Isla looked at the moonlit carvings around the pit, at the names circling the old king, at the crown she had placed into the floor instead of on her head. What are they? She whispered. The former king answered through pain. The ones the council could not bury cleanly. Another cursed wolf leapt at him. Rowan's father turned, took the bite into his shoulder, and held the wolf down with one massive paw. He did not tear its throat out. He looked at Isla, not begging, trusting. That trust terrified her more than the wolves. Isla stepped toward Tavian. Rowan kept the cursed wolf pinned, his body tense with the effort of not killing what still wore a person's name beneath the curse. Isla placed her shaking hand on Tavian's branded shoulder. The moonsteel mark burned her palm. She saw the guard again, kneeling before Edrin, refusing an order. A brand heated white. A scream swallowed beneath the keep. Isla closed her eyes. You are witnessed, she whispered. The brand cracked. The wolf beneath Rowan shuddered. Black bled from its eyes like smoke. Its body twisted, fur pulling back into shadow, claws shortening, jaw reshaping. In moments, a young man lay gasping on the pit floor, naked beneath tattered curse marks. Alive and sobbing, the court above erupted. Rowan stared at Isla. For once, the Alpha King looked not powerful, not distant, but shaken by wonder. Lord Edrin looked afraid. That was how Isla knew she had found the truth. The cursed wolves backed away. Not from Rowan. From her. Lady Mara gripped the railing, voice sharp with panic. She is freeing them! Stop her! Why? Isla looked up at her. Because they will speak? Mairaven still, the pit answered. One by one, silver names appeared above the remaining cursed wolves. Maren, Auric, Selv, Dain, Hista, Corin. Names stolen from bodies, bodies stolen from families. Families told the pit had judged fairly. Isla's fear did not leave. It changed. It became direction. She moved to the next wolf, then the next. Each time she touched a brand, she saw the truth. A healer who knew too much. A border envoy sacrificed to blame a rival pack. A maid who saw Mara's father hide a corpse in the royal chapel. A priestess who tried to open the pit records. Each time she spoke the same words. You are witnessed. Each time the curse cracked. The wolves fell back into human shapes, shaking, weeping, alive. Rowan and his father guarded her while she worked. The Alpha King fought anything that lunged too close. The former king took wounds meant for her without complaint, as if every bite were one death he finally had a chance to repay. Above, the court changed. The nobles no longer leaned forward for entertainment. They leaned back from guilt. Some recognized the restored. A daughter. A brother. A servant they had forgotten. A rival they had believed dead. Truth climbed the pit walls faster than fear could silence it. Then Isla reached the last wolf. It was larger than the others. Gray-black, branded not on its shoulder but over its heart. It did not attack. It stood in the tunnel mouth, staring at her with eyes that were almost human already. The name above it burned brighter than all the rest. Isla Vale. Rowan stopped breathing. My mother, he whispered. Lady Mara made a broken sound above them. The former king lowered his head. The gray-black wolf stepped forward. Rowan took one step toward her, then stopped, as if afraid that hope itself might become another cruelty. Isla approached slowly. The queen wolf watched her. No hunger, no madness, only grief with teeth. Isla placed her palm over the brand on Elowin's chest. The vision came like a blade. Queen Elowin discovering the council's pit records. Elowin confronting Edrin. Mara's mother standing beside him. A young Rowan asleep in a nursery above, never knowing his parents were being erased beneath his feet. Elowin refusing to sign the false death decree. Edrin's staff rising. Mara's mother whispering, if the queen lives, the girl with the scars will return one day. Then darkness. Shai. Fur. A mother's memory buried under a monster's skin. Isla opened her eyes with tears on her cheeks. Rowan's voice was barely sound. Can you free her? Isla looked at the brand. It was deeper than the others. Older. Tied into the pit itself. If I break this, she whispered. The whole pit breaks with it, Edrin shouted from above. And every sealed judgment opens. Every noble house will bleed truth. Every treaty signed after the old king's fall will be challenged. Rowan looked at Isla. The old version of him might have hesitated. This one did not. Then let them bleed truth. Isla pressed harder against the brand. The moonlit crown beneath the floor flared. Every name in the pit turned toward her. Elowin's wolf body shook. Rowan reached for his father's fur, and the half-freed old king lowered himself beside his son. Together, they watched the woman they both thought dead begin to return. The brand cracked. The pit split. And from beneath Blackthorn Keep, the records of every false judgment rose into the moonlight. The wolf pit opened its memory. Silver names rose from the stones like souls that had waited too long to breathe. Not books. Not records. Names. Tavian of the West Guard. Hesta of the Healing Wing. Marin of the Lower Kitchens. Corin of the Border Road. Queen Elowin Vale. King Aldrich Vale. The court above the pit went silent. No one laughed now. No one called Isla cursed. The nobles looked down at the glowing names and saw the truth they had inherited. The sacred wolf pit had never judged the guilty. It had swallowed whoever the council needed erased. Isla stood at the center of the pit with one hand pressed against the gray-black wolf's chest. Queen Elowin's cursed body trembled beneath her touch, caught between beast and woman. Beside them, the monstrous black wolf King Aldrich lowered his massive head, half-freed but still burning with moonfire. Rowan knelt near both of them. His face was white. My mother, he whispered. The queen wolf opened her eyes. For 1 second they were not the eyes of a beast. They were a mother's eyes. Rowan reached toward her, but the wolf flinched, not from hatred, from pain. Isla felt the curse fight back under her palm. This brand was deeper than the others. If Queen Elwyn returned, the pit's law would collapse. Every execution, every trial, every treaty signed after the old king's fall would become suspect. That was why Lord Edrin feared her. Not because Isla wanted power, because she could open what he had buried. Edrin clutched the railing above, blood sliding down his wrist. His calm was gone. Only the frightened old man beneath the law remained. "Stop her!" he shouted. "If the queen returns, every house here will bleed truth." No one moved. So he turned to Lady Mara. "Your house helped seal her," he said. "Do you want that spoken before the court?" Ma era van still. Her beautiful face lost its color. Queen Elwyn's wolf body snarled. Isla looked up. "Your family helped bury his mother?" Mara's voice shook. "My mother protected Blackthorn." "No," Rowan said, rising slowly. "Your mother protected a lie." Myra's eyes flashed with tears and rage. Elowen would have destroyed the noble order. She wanted servants to testify. She wanted pit records opened. She wanted Queen Mark blood restored beside the throne. She wanted justice, Isla said. She wanted chaos. Rowan stepped beside Isla. Not in front of her. Beside. "If justice feels like chaos," he said, "then perhaps Blackthorn has been peaceful for the wrong people." The court heard him. So did Isla. She did not forgive him. He had watched her fall. He had hesitated. He had needed a monster to prove her worth, but something in him was changing. And this time, he changed in public. Edrin's face twisted. "Then you leave me no choice." The iron railing around the pit turned red. The restored prisoners screamed as old brands reignited across their skin. The former king collapsed with a roar. Queen Elwyn's wolf body arched beneath Isla's hand, black smoke pouring from her chest. Isla understood. Edrin had hidden a final seal in the pit. If the truth rose, the pit would kill every witness it had failed to keep dead. Rowan lunged at the wall, claws tearing into the glowing iron. But the magic threw him back. Edrin shouted, "A kingdom can survive a few lies. It cannot survive every corpse standing up to accuse it." Isla looked around the pit, at the restored prisoners gasping in pain, at the former king bleeding moonfire, at Queen Elwyn trapped beneath her hand, at Rowan, pushing himself up again because this time he did not want to look away. The crown of moonlit bone pulsed beneath the floor. It offered power. Real power. The kind that could make every wolf kneel. The kind that could turn fear back on the court. For one breath, Isla wanted it. She wanted Mara afraid. She wanted Edrin crawling. She wanted every noble above to feel what it was like to wait for teeth in the dark. Then the former king looked at her. Not warning. Not commanding. Remembering. He had been turned into a weapon and blamed for the deaths he was forced to carry. Isla closed her eyes. "I will not become your pit," she whispered. The crown's light changed. Not brighter. Truer. Isla pressed both hands to the broken ground. "I do not judge them guilty after death," she said, voice shaking. "I name them alive before witness." The silver names stopped spinning. Every soul turned toward her. Tavian. Hesta. Marin. Corin. Elwyn. Aldrich. All who were buried under false judgment, rise if you choose to be remembered. The pit exploded with silver light. The red seal shattered. Brands broke open across the restored prisoners and dissolved into ash. Chains fell from the former king's body. The gray-black wolf beneath Isla's hands arched as moonfire tore through her curse. Then the wolf vanished. A woman collapsed onto the stone. Silver-haired. Scarred at the throat. Wrapped in torn shadows and moonlight. Queen Elwyn Vare lifted her head. Her eyes found Rowan. "My son," she whispered. Rowan broke. He dropped to his knees before her, not as Alpha King, but as the boy who had lost his mother before he was old enough to question the story. Beside them, the black beast cracked apart in smoke and moonfire. A wounded man fell from the monster's shape, older, shaking, still gold-eyed, still half-wolf in the soul. King Aldrich Vare. Elwyn reached for him. Aldrich reached back. The court began to weep, pray, and scream all at once. Rowan looked at his parents alive before him, then lifted his gaze to Edrin. The grief on his face went cold. "Seize him." For once, the guards did not look to the council. They looked to Rowan, then to Isla. Then they moved. Edrin stumbled backward. Mayra caught his arm. For 1 second, Isla thought she was helping him. Then Myra held him still. If he speaks, she whispered, staring down at the restored queen. My house falls. Queen Elowen stood unsteadily, supported by Aldrich. Her voice was weak, but every wolf heard it. Your house fell the day it chose the pit over truth. Mayra released Edrin as if burned. The guards dragged the counselor from the railing, but Edrin smiled. A thin, ruined smile. You think I was the root? He whispered. No, I was only the lock. The pit floor trembled. Far beneath Blackthorn Keep. Something answered. Not a wolf. Not a man. Something older than the pit. Older than the crown. Older than Queenmark blood itself. The moon above the open roof turned red, and every scar on Isla's face began to bleed silver. The moon turned red above Blackthorn Keep, and every wolf in the court forgot how to breathe. The color spread across the sky like blood dropped into water. Snow stopped falling. The wind died. Even the restored prisoners in the pit went still, their broken brands fading to ash on their skin. Isla stood at the center of the wolf pit, with silver blood running from the 3 scars on her face. It did not fall like normal blood. It rose. Thin silver threads lifted from her skin and drifted toward the red moon, as if something above the keep had been waiting for her to open. Rowan saw it and stepped toward her. Isla. His voice was careful now. Not command. Not judgment. Kade. That made it harder to ignore. King Aldrich, still shaking in the half-human weakness of a body returned from curse, looked up at the red moon and went pale. Queen Elowen gripped his arm. No, she whispered. The red maw. Lord Edrin laughed from where the guards held him near the railing. His face was bloody, his council robes torn, but there was still triumph in his eyes. You opened the pit, he said. Now let the thing beneath it wake. Rowan turned on him. What is the red maw? Edrin smiled. The reason the Queenmark line was first chained. The pit trembled again. This time the sound did not come from the walls. It came from below the bones. A slow scrape. A deep breath. Something huge moving under the foundation of Blackthorn Keep. Isla tried to step back, but the silver threads from her scars pulled tighter toward the red moon. Pain lanced through her face. She gasped and dropped to one knee. Rowan caught her before she hit the stone. The moment his hand touched her arm, the black beast inside his blood surged. His eyes flat. He felt it too. Not the pain. The pull. Whatever waited beneath the pit wanted both of them. Queen Elowen lifted her voice. The red maw was not born evil. It was the first pit beast. The first wolf the old kings fed with false judgment until hunger became its only law. Aldrich's voice was rough, broken from years of curse. The council did not create it. They inherited it. Then they learned to use it. Edrin's smile widened. And your precious Queenmark women kept it asleep by taking the pit's pain into their own blood. Isla's stomach went cold. Now she understood the scars. Not decoration. Not curse. Not proof of shame. A seal. Her face had been marked to hold back a hunger older than the court. Rowan's grip tightened, then loosened as if he remembered she was not his to hold. How do we stop it? No one answered. That silence was worse than fear. The pit floor cracked open. A red glow rose beneath the stones. The bones around Isla shifted. Not as names now, but as teeth. Long white shapes turned toward the center of the pit, forming a circle like the mouth of something buried alive. The restored prisoners backed away. The cursed wolves that had become human began to tremble. From the crack came a voice. Not loud. Hungry. Judge. Isla flinched. The red moon brightened. The voice came again. Judge. Edrin shouted down. It wants her verdict. Give it the court. Give it the guilty. Feed it the ones who wronged you, girl. That is what justice costs. The nobles screamed. Mara stumbled back from the railing, face white. He is mad. No, Elowen said softly. He is tempting her. Isla stared at the nobles above. Some had laughed when she fell. Some had stayed silent. Some had signed deaths. Some had inherited benefits and called ignorance innocence. And Edrin was right about one terrible thing. The Red Maw would take them. If she named them guilty, the pit would obey. For the first time in her life, all the people who had made her small were afraid of what she might say. The power felt sweet. That frightened her most. Rowan stepped between her and the red crack. The pit snarled. A line of blood opened across his cheek. Isla looked at him. Move. No. Her eyes sharpened. Do not start commanding me again. I am not commanding. His voice was low. I am standing where I should have stood before they threw you down here. The words hit too deep. She did not want them. Not now. Not with the red moon calling to the hurt inside her. You watched, she whispered. Rowan's face tightened. Yes, you waited for proof. Yes, you only came down when the beast chose me. His jaw flexed. Yes. Each answer was a wound he did not dodge. Then he lowered his head. I failed you before I knew your name. Let that be counted too. The pit went silent. Even Edrin stopped smiling. Isla staret atrovan. He had offered himself to judgment. Not as king. As guilty. The red moss stirred beneath them, interested. Judge him, the voice whispered. Silver blood slid down Isla's cheek. Her heart cracked under the weight of it. She could condemn him. The pit would listen. The court would understand her power. Rowan would pay. But revenge and truth were not the same, and she had already chosen not to become the pit. Isla lifted her trembling hand and pressed it to Rowan's chest. His heart beat hard beneath her palm. I name you guilty of silence, she said. A gasp moved through the court. Rowan closed his eyes. I name you guilty of hesitation. Of trusting law before pain. Of seeing a servant in the pit before seeing a woman. The red crack opened wider. Then Isla's voice broke. But I do not feed you to the hunger. Rowan opened his eyes. She turned toward the court. I will name the guilty. I will open the records. I will make every house answer. But I will not give this kingdom another monster and call it justice. The red maw roared. The pit erupted. Red light blasted upward, throwing Isla and Rowan apart. From the cracked floor rose a monstrous wolf skull made of bone, shadow, and blood-red moonfire. Its jaws were wide enough to swallow the entire pit. Around its throat hung thousands of old verdicts, each one carved into chain links. Edrin screamed in triumph. Then it will judge without you. The red maw lunged toward the restored prisoners first. Isla staggered up, silver blood still flowing from her scars. Rowan rose beside her. Aldrich and Elowen stood behind them, weak but unbowed. For the first time, the old king, the old queen, the Alpha King, and the scarred maid faced the same hunger. The moonlit crown rose from the broken floor and hovered before Isla again. This time she understood. It was not asking her to rule. It was asking her to witness without becoming cruel. Isla took the crown in both hands. The red maw opened its jaws, and every false verdict chained around its throat began whispering her name. The false verdicts whispered Isla's name as if the wolf pit had been waiting her whole life to decide what kind of woman her pain would make. The red maw rose higher from the broken floor, its skull made of bone and blood moon fire, its jaws wide enough to swallow every restored prisoner behind her. Around its throat hung thousands of chain links, each carved with a sentence once spoken in the name of law. Guilty, impure, traitor, cursed, thief, madwoman, servant. Each word had fed it. Each lie had given it teeth. Isla held the moonlit crown in both hands, her scarred face bleeding silver, her body shaking so hard she could barely stand. The crown was cold, but beneath the cold was a pulse like a heart waiting to be trusted. Rowan stood beside her, blood on his cheek where the red maw's judgment had marked him. He did not reach for the crown. He did not tell her what to do. That silence mattered. Above the pit, the court had stopped pretending courage. Nobles huddled behind guards. Priests clutched their broken moonstones. Lady Mara stood near the railing, white-furred shoulders trembling as she watched the monster her family had helped keep hidden begin to devour the law they once used. Lord Edrin laughed through blood. You cannot stop it without feeding it. That is what every Queenmark woman learned. The pit demands guilt. Give it mine if you want. Give it theirs. But someone must be swallowed. The red maw turned its hollow eyes toward him. For a moment, Edrin's smile faltered. Even he feared the thing he had unlocked. Queen Elowyn stepped forward, weak but upright, one hand pressed to the old scar at her throat. Isla, listen to me. The Queen Mark was never made to command the pit. Isla looked at her. Elowyn's silver hair moved in the red moon wind. It was made to make the pit remember the difference between guilt and hunger. The words struck deep. Guilt and hunger. That was the choice before her. Guilt could answer. Hunger only consumed. The red maw lunged. Rowan and Aldrich moved together, father and son throwing themselves against a wall of blood-red fire. The impact drove them both to one knee. The restored prisoners cried out behind them. Isla felt every chain around the red maw's throat tighten around her own breath. Judge. The command shook her bones. Judge. Isla lifted the crown. Every wolf in Blackthorn keep bowed lower. Not in worship, but beneath the weight of what waited. She could feel the pit offering her its oldest power. Wear the crown. Name the guilty. Feed the monster. End the threat. Simple. Clean. Terrible. Her gaze rose to the court. Mara was there, beautiful and terrified. Edrin was there, bleeding and ruined. Nobles who had laughed at her. Priests who had blessed the pit. Guards who had dragged her barefoot across the stones. People who had let her life become entertainment because a scarred servant was easy to sacrifice. The hurt inside Isla opened like a wound. She wanted them afraid. She wanted them named. She wanted the pit to look up for once instead of down. Then Tavian, the freed guard, stumbled behind her and whispered, "Do not let it make you carry us the way it made him." Isla turned. He was looking at King Aldrich. The old king had carried death in a monster's body for 10 years. Every scream blamed on his teeth. Every execution passed through his jaws. He had been made weapon and witness at once. Isla understood. If she fed the red maw now, even with guilty names, she would become the next beautiful excuse for horror. She lowered the crown. Edrin's eyes widened. Fool. No, Isla said. Her voice was weak, then stronger. No more guilty after death. The red maw roared. Isla stepped toward it. Rowan turned sharply. Isla. She did not look back. You asked what I need. He went still. I need you to let me stand. The pain that crossed his face was fierce. But he obeyed. Isla walked to the edge of the broken floor, where the red maw's enormous jaws hovered above the stone. Heat washed over her. Her scars burned. Silver blood fell upward toward the red moon. She placed the crown on the ground between herself and the monster. I will not wear judgment like a crown, she said. And I will not feed you bodies so the living can feel safe from truth. The chain links around the red maw rattled. Guilty, they whispered. Yes, Isla said. There is guilt here. She pointed to Edrin. There is guilt in him. Edrin's face hardened. She pointed to Mara. There is guilt in her house. Myra flinched. She looked at the nobles above. There is guilt in every witness who knew silence was easier than courage. Then she pressed her bloodied hand against her own chest. And there is guilt in every heart that wanted revenge so badly it almost called hunger justice. The court went silent. The red maw's jaws stopped closing. Isla knelt before the crown, not to submit, but to bring herself eye level with the names carved into the monster's chains. I name the guilty alive, she said. Let them answer while breathing. Let them lose titles, lands, crowns, and lies. Let the dead be remembered. Let the living stand trial. But the pit will not eat for us anymore. The moonlit crown shattered. Silver light burst outward. Every false verdict around the red maw's throat cracked at once. The monster screamed. Not in pain alone, but in starvation. Without bodies to consume, without silence to feed it, without a queen mark willing to become its mouth, the old hunger began to collapse inward. Edrin screamed too. Red light tore from his chest and flew toward the red maw. Then from Mara's pearl necklace. Then from council rings. Then from noble seals, priestly staffs, guard oaths, old trial stones, hidden documents, and every law that had ever fed the pit. The red maw had not lived beneath Blackthorn. It had lived inside everything Blackthorn called justice. Now the lies were leaving their hosts. The monster thrashed, shrinking with every broken verdict. Rowan stood beside Isla at last, not to shield her, but to witness. Elowin and Aldrich stood behind them, hand in hand. The restored prisoners lifted their heads. One by one, the names in the air turned from silver to white. The red maw gave one final roar. Then it broke apart into ash and moonlight. The red moon faded. Snow began falling again. For the first time in generations, the wolf pit was only stone. No hunger, no judgment, no teeth waiting in the dark. Isla swayed. Rowan caught her before she fell, but his hands remained careful, ready to let go if she asked. She looked up at him, exhausted and scarred and covered in silver blood. "Do not make me your symbol," she whispered. His eyes softened with grief. "No, do not make this clean. I will not." Above them, Myra sank to her knees as every hidden seal of House Salvin burned red around her wrists. Lord Edrin collapsed as the guards dragged him away, no longer protected by law, only exposed by it. Queen Elowin turned to the court, voice still weak but impossible to ignore. "The pit is ended." No one cheered. Truth had not made them joyful. It had made them responsible. And that was far more dangerous. The wolf pit was dead. That should have felt like victory. Instead, Blackthorn Keep stood in a silence so heavy it seemed to press the snow from the air. The iron railings no longer glowed. The old bones lay still beneath the frost. The red moon had faded back to pale silver, and the place that had swallowed screams for generations was only a broken circle of stone. Only stone. Only now did the court understand what that meant. There would be no sacred beast to hide behind. No moon judgment. No pit to turn murder into law. Every noble above the railing looked suddenly exposed. Isla stood at the center of the pit, silver blood drying along the 3 scars on her face. The queen mark still glowed faintly beneath her skin, but the crown of moonlit bone was gone, shattered into ash and light. She felt hollowed out, as if the pit had taken every drop of strength and left only the part of her that refused to kneel. Rowan still held her arm, carefully. His touch was steady, but not claiming. When she looked at his hand, he released her at once. The movement was small. It mattered. Queen Elowin stood near the restored prisoners, one arm wrapped around King Aldrich's waist. Both looked half dead, half living, and wholly wounded. 10 years had been stolen from them. 10 years from Rowan. 10 years from Blackthorn. And the court that had benefited from that theft now waited to see what the truth would cost. Rowan climbed the broken steps out of the pit. He did not take the royal stair. He used the same blood-slick stones the condemned had been forced down. When he reached the court level, no one spoke. Lord Edrin was on his knees, hands bound behind him. Without his staff, without his moonstone rings, without the pit answering beneath him, he looked smaller than any law he had spoken. Lady Mara knelt several steps away, red seals burning around her wrists where House Salvin's hidden oaths had marked her. Her face was pale. Her hair had fallen loose. Black pearls lay scattered around her like seeds of a dead crown. Rowan stopped before them. For a moment, Isla thought he would order their deaths. Part of the court expected it. Part of Isla expected it too. Instead, Rowan looked back down into the pit. At her. At his parents. At the freed prisoners. Then he turned to the court. "No more judgment without witness," he said. His voice carried through the keep. "No more trials sealed by council law. No more disappearances called moonwill. No more servants condemned because noble houses require clean hands." Edrin lifted his head slowly. "You will break the kingdom." Rowan looked at him. "No. I am done preserving a broken one." A murmur moved through the nobles. Fear. Anger. Something close to shame. Rowan's golden eyes swept across them. Every name the pit revealed will be entered into the royal record. Every family stripped by false judgment will be restored where restoration is possible. Every house that used the pit to erase debt, scandal, bloodline, or witness will answer before the crown. One border alpha stepped forward. "And if half the houses refuse?" King Aldrich's voice rose from the pit, rough but unmistakably royal. "Then half the houses confess by refusing." The court froze. The old king climbed slowly from the pit with Elowin beside him. Every wolf lowered its head. Not under force. Under memory. Aldrich looked at the nobles who had once called him dead. "I carried your victims in my jaws while you toasted under chandeliers. Do not speak to me of order." No one answered. Mayra looked at Rowan, eyes wet with fury and terror. My mother was told Queenmark blood would enslave kings. She believed Blackthorn would fall. Elowyn stepped forward. The court parted for her. She believed what let her keep power, the restored queen said. That is not the same as innocence. Mayra's lips trembled. Then what happens to me? Isla climbed from the pit before Rowan could answer. Every eye turned to her. She hated it. The attention. The expectation. The way they suddenly looked to the scarred maid because power had touched her face and made her useful to their guilt. She stopped beside Rowan, not behind him. I will not ask for her death, Isla said. Mayra stared at her. Edrin gave a bitter laugh. Mercy from the pit's new saint. Isla turned to him. The laugh died. This is not mercy, she said. Mercy would make me feel clean. I do not feel clean. I want her afraid. I want you afraid. I want every noble above this pit to feel one breath of what you fed to others. Her voice shook. No one interrupted. But if I give the pit another body, then the pit survives inside me. Rowan looked at her then. Not with pity. With recognition. Isla Facid Maera. You will speak every Solvan name tied to the pit. Every false charge. Every servant buried. Every witness bought. You will stand before the families your house erased and hear them answer you. Mayra's face broke. And if I refuse? Queen Elowyn answered. Then your house loses every title before sundown. Mayra lowered her head. Edrin smiled faintly. And me? Rowan stepped closer to him. You will live. For the first time, Edrin looked afraid. You will live without council title. Without staff. Without rings. Without law to hide behind. You will hear every name read aloud. You will watch every judgment you sealed opened before the court. Edrin swallowed. You think that is justice? Isla said. No. It is only the beginning. The snow fell harder. Dawn was still hours away. But the darkness over Blackthorn had changed. It was no longer the darkness before execution. It was the darkness after a door had been opened, when everyone inside had to decide whether to step through or keep pretending they loved the cage. Rowan turned to Isla. There were 1,000 things in his eyes. Guilt, gratitude, awe, fear. Something more dangerous and softer beneath all of it. He did not speak them. Good. She was too tired to carry his feelings too. Instead, he said, the pit records will be open tonight. I would have you there as witness. If you choose it. If you choose it. The words moved through her like warmth after frostbite. Not enough to heal, enough to hurt. Isla looked back into the pit where she had almost died, where her scars had opened, where the beast had guarded her, where the truth had risen from bones. I will stand there, she said. Not for you. Rowan bowed his head. I know. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she walked past him toward the keep doors, silver scars glowing faintly beneath the moon. Behind her, the wolves of Blackthorn lowered their heads, not because she commanded them, because the pit no longer could. The royal record room had no windows. That was the first thing Isla noticed. For generations, Blackthorn had kept its truths underground, behind iron doors, beneath wolf sigils, sealed in cold shelves where no moonlight could reach. The nobles called it an archive. The servants called it the silent grave. Tonight, the doors stood open. Rowan entered first, not as a king leading a procession, but as the man responsible for what had been buried under his crown. Behind him came Queen Elowyn and King Aldrich, still weak from the curse. Their hands locked together as if letting go might return them to darkness. The restored prisoners followed. Tavian, Hesta, Marin, Karin, names that had been crimes an hour ago and were people again now. Isla came last. No one ordered her forward. No one dragged her. That alone nearly undid her. She stepped into the record room with her scars still glowing faintly beneath dried silver blood. The shelves rose around her like walls of judgment. Thousands of scrolls, trial seals, death orders, confessions written in hands that were not the condemned, pit decrees signed by council rings and blessed by priests who had never looked into the eyes of those they sent below. Lord Edrin was forced to kneel in the center of the room. Lady Mara stood beside him, wrists bound not with chains, but with red witness marks from her own house oaths. She looked smaller without the railing above her, without the false Luna's cloak, without a crowd ready to believe her beauty before Isla's pain. Rowan looked at Isla. Where do we begin? The room waited for her answer. She hated that too. The sudden reverence. The way power made people polite after cruelty failed. She had been a maid when they threw her into the pit. She was still that girl. Scarred, exhausted, angry. Not holy, not healed. But she was no longer alone. Isla walked to the nearest shelf and pulled down the first sealed record. The wax bore Lord Edrin's mark. She broke it. The sound was small. The room reacted as if a throat had been cut. Isla unrolled the parchment and read the first name. Marin of the Lower Kitchens. Accused of stealing moonwine from House Solvin. Sentenced to wolf pit judgment. Marin, standing near the door with trembling hands, let out a sound too broken to be a sob. Isla read the next line. True cause. Witness to the concealment of a body in the royal chapel. Every eye turned to Mara. Mara closed her eyes. Her voice shook. House Solvin will answer. Queen Elowyn stepped forward. No. House Solvin will confess. Answering comes later. The reading continued. Name after name. Lie after lie. Some nobles tried to leave. Aldrich stopped them with one look. Some wept. Some denied until their own signatures appeared under the seals. Some fell silent when servants they had forgotten stood alive before them. Hours passed. The moon moved across the broken sky above Blackthorn, though no window showed it. Isla felt it anyway. The queen mark on her face pulsed with every name restored. By dawn, the first ledger was empty of secrecy. Not of pain. Never that. But secrecy had lost one room. Rowan stood before the gathered court as morning crept gray over the keep. He looked older than he had in the pit. Less untouchable. More real. The wolf pit is ended, he said. No judgment in Blackthorn will be sealed from witness again. Every pit record will be opened. Every false charge will be reviewed. Every house that profited from buried names will restore land, title, wages, and blood debt where restoration is possible. A noble lord stepped forward, furious. And if the houses rebel, Rowan looked at him. Then they rebel for the right to murder in secret. No one answered. Edrin lifted his head. You think this makes you noble? You still wore the crown while we ruled beneath it. Rowan did not flinch. Yes, he said. And I will answer for that too. The court stilled. Rowan turned toward Isla. Not to use her. Not to hide behind her. To face her. I watched you fall, he said. I let law stand where conscience should have stood. I waited for proof before I saw your pain. That failure is mine. Isla's throat tightened. Every noble watched, hungry for a romantic absolution, a clean ending. A king forgiven by the scarred girl he had wronged. She would not give them that. Yes, she said. One word. A full judgment. Rowan bowed his head and accepted it. That was when something inside Isla eased, not forgiveness. Not yet. But the first breath after a chain loosens. Mara stepped forward next. Her face was pale, stripped of pride. My house placed the ruby in your bedding, she said. My mother helped bind Queen Elowyn. I continued the lie because I wanted the Luna crown and feared what your blood would reveal. Isla looked at her for a long time. What will you do now? She asked. Mara swallowed. Read the Solvin records aloud. And after? Stand before the families we erased. And after? Mara's eyes filled. Whatever they ask of truth. Isla nodded once. Not forgiveness. Permission to begin. The restored queen walked to Isla then. Elowyn's body still trembled from years of curse, but her gaze was steady. She lifted one hand toward Isla's scarred face and stopped before touching. May I? The question broke Isla more than the pit had. She nodded. Elowyn touched the 3 silver scars with the gentleness of a mother touching a sleeping child. These were never marks of shame, the queen said. They were the last door we could leave in the dark. Isla's eyes burned. Why me? Aldrich answered from beside her, voice rough with grief. Because I found you in the kennel fire. Because your mother died hiding the Queen Mark line. Because I could not save the others. But I could seal the mark before Edrin saw it. Isla remembered smoke. A golden eye. Survive. Her breath trembled. You saved me. Aldrich lowered his head. Not enough. No, Isla said softly. But enough for me to stand here. The old king wept then, silently, like a man who had forgotten he was allowed. By sunrise, the pit stones were broken and carried into the courtyard. Not as relics, as evidence. Every servant of Blackthorn was summoned to witness the end of the old law. Some came afraid, some came angry. Some would not come at all. Isla understood. Freedom could be frightening when it arrived wearing the face of the place that hurt you. Rowan stood before the broken pit and removed the black wolf crown from his head. The court gasped. He set it on the stone between himself and Isla. I will not ask you to wear this, he said. Not because the pit answered you. Not because wolves bowed. Not because old blood returned through your scars. Isla stared at the crown. Rowan's voice lowered. If you ever stand beside me, it will be because you are free enough to refuse. The words were quiet. They reached her anyway. She looked at the man who had failed her. The king trying to become worthy after the truth had already cost too much. The son who had found his parents and lost the illusion of his own innocence in the same night. I am not ready to forgive you, she said. Rowan bowed his head. I know. I am not your Luna. I know. I may never be. Pain moved through his eyes, but he did not look away. Then I will still open the records. There it was. The choice that was not about winning her. The first honest thing love could grow beside. Isla stepped past the crown and looked at the servants gathered in the courtyard, then at the restored prisoners, then at the nobles who would spend years answering for what their houses had buried. My name is Isla Vale, she said. I was thrown into the wolf pit as a thief. I came out as witness. The wolves of Blackthorn lowered their heads, not because she commanded them, because the truth had. Snow fell gently over the broken stones. Behind her, King Aldrich and Queen Elwyn stood hand in hand. Beside her, Rowan waited without reaching. Above them, the moon faded into morning, pale and quiet, no longer red with hunger. Isla touched the scars on her face. For the first time, they did not feel like proof of what had been done to her. They felt like proof that she had survived it. And when Rowan offered his hand not to claim, not to crown, only to ask, Isla looked at it for a long time. Then she placed her hand in his. Not as queen, not as servant, not as forgiveness. As the scarred girl who ended the wolf pit, restored the stolen dead, and taught Blackthorn that justice was not a monster waiting in the dark. It was a witness brave enough to speak in the light.